The old farmhouse overlooking the Blue Ridge foothills had always been filled with warm laughter and the comforting sounds of family. Yet one chilly October evening an unsettling silence settled over every room as though the walls themselves had begun guarding a painful secret. Evelyn Carter sensed the change the moment her husband, Daniel, stepped inside without his usual smile, quietly hanging his jacket near the front door before staring out the kitchen window at the trucking yard they had spent 35 years building together. Daniel answered every question with the same forced reassurance, insisting he was only exhausted after a long appointment in Asheville, but his trembling hands betrayed emotions he could not hide behind polite words. Evelyn watched him carefully throughout dinner, noticing he barely touched his food while absent-mindedly tracing circles across the table, leaving her heart burdened by a fear she could neither explain nor ignore. Their company had begun with a single aging freight truck that Daniel repaired himself every weekend while Evelyn managed invoices, payroll, and customer calls from a tiny office squeezed into their garage. Through relentless determination they expanded into one of North Carolina's most respected regional logistics firms, earning loyal clients because they valued honesty more than quick profits. Every sacrifice they made centered around their only son, Mason, whose education, opportunities, and comfortable upbringing came directly from years of exhausting labor and sleepless nights. Daniel often joked that every mile one of their trucks traveled was another brick laid beneath Mason's future, never imagining that prosperity could one day become the source of heartbreaking conflict. Nearly a month later, Daniel invited Evelyn onto the back porch where they had celebrated anniversaries, birthdays, and countless sunsets, and there he finally confessed the truth he had carried alone. His doctors had confirmed an aggressive, terminal illness with little hope for recovery, leaving him determined to spend his remaining months protecting the people and legacy he loved instead of surrendering to despair. Although grief threatened to overwhelm her, Evelyn squeezed his hand and promised they would face every challenge together, refusing to let fear steal the precious time they still shared. Daniel smiled faintly before revealing that his greatest concern was not death itself but what might happen after he was gone. He admitted he had recently learned that Mason's ambitious wife, Vanessa, had quietly questioned company executives about ownership rights and financial records despite having no official position within the business. Her unusual curiosity convinced Daniel that someone was already preparing for his absence long before the family had accepted the painful reality of his diagnosis. Evelyn struggled to believe anyone could think about inheritance while Daniel was still alive, but her husband calmly explained that greed often arrived long before funerals. He also confessed that Mason had become increasingly unwilling to challenge Vanessa's decisions, choosing temporary peace at home instead of confronting behavior that troubled everyone around them. Before the evening ended, Daniel handed Evelyn a small locked cedar box along with a brass key, asking her to hide both items where no one would ever think to search until the proper moment arrived. As the autumn wind swept across the quiet fields and the last rays of sunlight disappeared beyond the hills, Evelyn realized that the difficult journey ahead had already begun, though she could never have imagined how severely her family's loyalty would soon be tested. Winter arrived earlier than expected, bringing icy mornings and endless gray skies, and with each passing week Daniel's strength faded while his determination to protect everything they had built only seemed to grow stronger. During quiet evenings he continued meeting privately with trusted advisors, insisting that every important decision be finalized before his family faced the inevitable heartbreak that neither hope nor medicine could prevent. One peaceful Sunday before sunrise, Daniel passed away with Evelyn holding his hand as soft rain tapped gently against the hospital window, creating a bittersweet farewell that felt both heartbreakingly quiet and impossibly heavy. The world outside continued moving as though nothing had changed. Yet for Evelyn every familiar sound suddenly carried the painful reminder that the man who had shared every dream and every struggle beside her was gone forever. After returning home from the hospital, Evelyn wandered through the empty house, where every room held memories of happier years, finding herself unable to remove Daniel's jacket from the hallway because it still carried the faint scent of cedar and engine oil. She spent the entire night sitting in his favorite rocking chair, watching the sunrise through tear-filled eyes while wondering how she would face a future she had never expected to face alone. 2 days after the funeral, Mason called to say he wanted to visit and discuss the family's future, assuring his mother that they would handle everything together just as his father would have wanted. When the doorbell rang that afternoon, however, Evelyn was stunned to see Mason standing beside Vanessa and an unfamiliar man, dressed in an expensive tailored suit, carrying a leather briefcase that immediately filled the house with an uncomfortable sense of confrontation rather than comfort. The stranger introduced himself as a corporate legal consultant representing investors interested in the future leadership of Carter Freight Solutions, speaking with practiced confidence as though he already belonged inside the family home. Evelyn's heart sank when she realized that instead of bringing compassion during her time of mourning, they had arrived prepared to discuss ownership, authority, and financial control before she had even begun adjusting to life without her husband. Vanessa confidently spread several folders across the dining table and suggested that immediate changes in company management would prevent uncertainty among employees and clients, carefully disguising ambition beneath polished business language. Evelyn calmly interrupted her, reminding everyone in the room that Daniel had been laid to rest only 48 hours earlier and that respect for his memory should come before conversations about power and money. Mason shifted uneasily between his wife and his grieving mother, clearly torn between loyalty and pressure, yet he remained painfully silent while Vanessa continued pressing for answers regarding company shares and executive authority. The silence hurt Evelyn more deeply than any harsh words could have, because she recognized that the confident young man she had raised had slowly become someone afraid to challenge the person standing beside him. After firmly asking them to leave, Evelyn locked the front door and stood alone in the quiet hallway until she finally remembered the small cedar box Daniel had entrusted to her weeks before his passing. With trembling hands, she unlocked it and discovered neatly organized legal documents, handwritten letters, and a confidential business plan that revealed Daniel had anticipated every possible attempt to seize control of the company, proving once again that his greatest strength had always been thinking several steps ahead even during the darkest days of his life. Inside the cedar box, Evelyn found notarized agreements, confidential letters, and a personal journal in which Daniel explained every decision he had quietly made over the previous 2 years, ensuring that no outsider could manipulate the company after his passing. The documents revealed that ownership had already been transferred into a protected family trust under Evelyn's complete authority, while Mason's future inheritance would remain secure but unavailable until he demonstrated responsible leadership and independent judgment. Daniel's final handwritten letter encouraged Evelyn to lead with wisdom rather than anger, reminding her that true strength came from protecting people instead of seeking revenge against those who had caused pain. Reading his words through tears, she felt his steady presence guiding her once more, replacing overwhelming grief with a renewed determination to honor everything they had sacrificed together. The following morning, Evelyn met with the company's longtime attorney, Rebecca Collins, who carefully reviewed every document before confirming that Daniel's legal planning was flawless and fully enforceable. Rebecca also revealed that someone had recently attempted to obtain confidential corporate records through dishonest means, prompting an internal investigation that uncovered suspicious communications connected to Vanessa. Independent investigators eventually discovered that Vanessa had secretly persuaded a former administrative employee at Daniel's medical center to disclose private information regarding his illness months before the family announced the diagnosis. The evidence led to serious legal consequences for everyone involved, exposing a deliberate scheme built on deception, greed, and the misuse of confidential information. When the truth became public, Vanessa's carefully constructed image collapsed almost overnight as business associates distanced themselves and every attempt to challenge Daniel's estate failed in court. Faced with overwhelming evidence, she found herself responsible for significant financial penalties and the permanent loss of the influence she had pursued so aggressively. Mason requested a private meeting with his mother several weeks later, arriving alone for the first time in years with tired eyes and genuine regret written across his face. He admitted that although he had never participated in Vanessa's illegal actions, he had ignored countless warning signs, because confronting difficult truths had seemed easier to avoid than to face. Evelyn listened quietly without interrupting, allowing long moments of silence to settle between them before finally explaining that forgiveness could begin only after accountability and lasting change. Mason accepted every word without argument, promising that rebuilding trust would require patience, honesty, and consistent actions rather than emotional promises. Over the following year, Evelyn modernized Carter Freight Solutions with the help of an experienced executive team Daniel had personally recommended before his death. expanding operations into several neighboring states while preserving the family's reputation for integrity and dependable service. Employees who had once feared uncertainty found renewed confidence under her leadership, proving that compassion and firm decision-making could successfully exist side by side. Mason finalized his divorce and slowly began rebuilding both his personal life and his relationship with his mother, choosing humility over pride as he earned opportunities instead of expecting them. Although the wounds left by betrayal never disappeared completely, honest conversations gradually replaced years of silence, allowing hope to return where resentment had once lived. Standing beside Daniel's favorite oak tree on the anniversary of his passing, Evelyn reflected on the extraordinary journey that had transformed unimaginable heartbreak into quiet resilience and lasting purpose. She understood that the greatest inheritance Daniel had left behind was never the business itself but the courage to protect what truly mattered, proving that integrity will always outlast greed, and that genuine love prepares those we cherish for life even after we are gone. Thank you for listening to this story and sharing in this unforgettable journey of love, loyalty, betrayal, and redemption. Please subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends and family. We create entertaining and inspiring stories for our viewers, and your support helps us continue making great content for you.